fired me up. I said it.
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 317. My name is Brando, and we welcome back, although this might as well be your first time on the show, David Roach, because 2018, we might as well have been writing dinosaurs. That was just so long ago, a different world. But still, welcome back to the show, David Roach. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
David Roach from Junkyard. And if you follow on social media, I posted actually a highlight. It was way back in episode 88. So if you heard me say it's been...
You said 317. Who was 316?
I'm glad you're asking. That's going to tie in well to this conversation. David Plastic. He's a photographer.
I'm a nerd. I don't know anything.
Oh, okay. Well, David Plastic. Well, I'll poke fun at him.
Oh, Plastic. Yeah.
The photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Great photographer.
Yeah, exactly. All right. You know. So what David and I did, we did a Zoom interview, and he was showing all these old, his classic Guns N' Roses photographs. And of course, among those, and that's part of the highlight clip. If fans want to go to, our YouTube page, I put it up there where you're talking about Axl Rose wearing a Junkyard T-shirt and on stage, and you kind of get started that by saying thanks, Axl. You had no idea, it would just turn out to be. We would still be talking about it all these years later. I don't know if that rings a bell because again, 2018.
So who's also worn Junkyard T-shirts in the past?
Slash, right?
Looking Slash, Axl, some guy from Three Doors Down, and some boy band singer or something. A bunch of people wore Junkyard shirts in the past.
All right, I got to find out with the boy band. Did you know if it was like NSYNC or Backstreet Boys? This is important information.
I don't know how important it is, but I don't know, one of them.
That's okay. Well, you know what? It's kind of funny you're tapping into this now because I think it was a topic of conversation lately, and I can't believe I'm saying this person's name on this podcast, but Kourtney Kardashian was wearing a Guns N' Roses shirt, and I just tweeted, what do you think her favorite Guns N' Roses song is? And people were like, Freebird or Every Rose Has Its Thorn. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't know the band. But obviously people who wear Junkyard shirts are just OG rockers who know who you are. So how do you, all these years later, how does that, I guess, make you feel whether you see, a boy bander wearing it or someone like me who still likes to reminisce about the days of Axl wearing it at the classic Perkins Palace show or whatever shows he wore it at?
Well, look, it's an honor that Axl wore our shirt, and I wish our shirts could be sold in one of those stores on the street, like a Hot Topic or something, something like that. And be I'd like our image to be one of those shirts you see like the Ramones or something, where you just instantly identify the logo, whether you know us or not. It's an honor.
I totally know what you're talking about, like the branding. There was another, because my fiance watches a lot of Bravo TV, so I claim this is the only reason I know this. But there was some Real Housewife that was wearing a Metallica shirt, and I think Andy Cohen was like, "Oh, Metallica, what's your favorite song?" And she had no idea it was a band.
No, you couldn't name one. I mean,
didn't know it was a band, let alone name a song.
It's like Motorhead. I mean, name one song that you know from Motorhead.
I know, other than Ace of Spades, maybe. But yeah,
or the Ramones too. Sedated or whatever. It's all good.
Well, that's why
just to be in that group.
And Junkyard is a brandable name anyway, so we got to get. And I see all over your Facebook and on Twitter, your shirts are selling out. So I'm assuming you're going to have more shirts to sell out on the road, and I appreciate you giving me time before you hit the road.
Oh, I'm happy to give you the time, and I'm happy to sell any shirts we have.
Yeah, so I'm actually kind of bummed because you're going to Chicago, and I'm actually going to Chicago later this month. So I'm just missing you, but you're in a lot of places where my listeners are. Chicago, you're going to be going to Texas, Ohio. So as I was listening, kind of a side conversation to the listener, that because David and I were just kind of chatting before the interview, and I don't expect people who I interviewed to remember me. It doesn't matter if it's Alice Cooper or you do so many interviews also. So I'm just not that important. I'm not a Howard Stern.
You don't sell yourself short. Well, you're important. I'm
5'6". Well, I know what you're saying. I get you. But the point being, I don't blame you for that. So I had to go back and re-listen to the interview, so I wasn't asking the same questions. And 2018, pre-COVID, Omicron, Jamiroquai, whatever's coming next, you were ready to go out on tour, and I'm just so grateful. I think fans are grateful that you're going out on tour. So what are your thoughts, I guess, hitting the road in this, in this climate right now? Are you excited, or do you let the world, the news get to you, or are you just ready to rock?
I'm very excited, and this will disappoint some fans, but I'm double vaccinated and boosted.
I'm not disappointed at all. I'm double vaxxed. My not boosted yet. My girlfriend is boosted, but
here's the thing with me is I just want to go on tour, and I don't want to have a problem at the gate at the airport or anything. I just want to be fully. I put so many things in my body over the years, from heroin to crack to cheap vodka, that I'm not afraid of a vaccine.
You know what? I feel that needs to be, that's the quote I'm taking out of this podcast, because that's what I feel. The amount of things that people put into their body, whether it's just these Four Loko or fast food. These are things, again, this is not a political, issue, and we don't need to go down this road. This is a rock and roll podcast for the most part, but there's a crossover. Like the Foo Fighters canceled their tour date, the new tour date in Minnesota because of vax protocol. So, these are, and Guns N' Roses, as this is a GNR podcast, probably the only band to successfully really get through it because of their strict protocols. I get it. And I think I just want to say people need to understand that it doesn't mean you're immune, but it's going to protect you. And again, these are the rules in place to protect all of us.
And protect other people.
And protect other people. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm glad to hear that. And wow. Just it's so, I can't get over. I've done crack.
Bad Religion also had to cancel some shows.
Yeah.
And, it's happening. This is a real thing that's going on internationally. And
right.
It's just easier for me to accommodate and to be a part of the solution, not add to the problem.
Thank you, David. That's very. I appreciate that as a fan and just as a person. I think you're setting the right message. And so with your, your new music and your new music video, was there any restraints with that the Lifer video, right?
Yes.
So was there any, because it came out only a few months ago, so it's still pretty recent. Mm-hmm. Any restraints making? It was a straight up rock and roll video in a club, and it was any difficulties, or was that a fun video shoot?
Yeah, we just did it in my drummer's mom's garage.
Okay.
And she supplied sandwiches and beer, and it was totally fun. Everything we do is family oriented and always very comfortable.
Wow. Was there any orange slices there or any I
don't remember orange slices, but everything else was there.
Oh, man, I love that, because just like the title of the song says, Lifer, and what we spent a lot of time talking about, and if fans want to go back and listen to episode 88, and also at the time I invited on a listener of the podcast, which I do often, fans of yours, Miss Metal, was the co-host of that podcast. So actually, let me not forget some of your fans that commented about you coming on. So this is from Scott Goodwin out of West Virginia. He said, "We lived the best generation of music. Nobody will tell stories like this ever again. I could die happy. It's when people sweated rock and roll and lived rock and roll. Thank you, Junkyard Blues, motherfucker." So that leads to lifer. That just leads to you just doing what you've always done, playing in a garage, rock and roll, and going out on the road, right?
Yeah, it means a lot. And I can tell you a story about that song if you want to hear it.
I do.
Well, when we were writing it, we hadn't had a title yet. We just had the music and the lyrics, and it wasn't complete. But a guy I grew up with, Jason McMaster, who's singing for Dangerous Toys, if you're familiar with them.
Yeah, for sure.
He, my guitar player and my old guitar player, Brian Baker, who plays with Bad Religion now, they said, Jason's name came up, and they said, "How's Jason doing?" And my guitar player, Tim, said, you know Jason, he's a lifer, which means he only knows one thing, like we do. He only knows rock and roll. He's a lifer.
Yeah.
It means he does it because it's the only thing he knows. And that's how I feel.
You can't fake that. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier on. And now, I'll see younger bands. Look, I say younger bands. Look, David, I'm not going to lie. I'm 38. I'm 38.
Everyone's younger than us.
I know. Yeah, but I'm younger than you, so you're going to laugh when I say younger bands as a 38-year-old. But, while
you're a punk kid.
I got gray hairs on my beard. That doesn't count.
I just doubt that.
But, I see, younger bands coming up, and if there's a pop punk revolution, and I just kind of look at them, and I'm like, you're not a lifer yet. You haven't lived the life to be a real rock and roller, like Machine Gun Kelly, or, these people that are supposedly the faces of rock and roll. And I'm like, no, the face of rock and roll is David Roach. You gotta. So I don't know if you feel that way, or if that is even on your radar. Like you're just focused on what you're doing.
I don't think about it that much. I know how I live and where I live, and I live in a shed, and I pay $400 a month, and I work on the property I live on, and I swing a hammer, and when I'm lucky enough, I get on tour and I get to play in front of people. And that's all. I mean, to me, that's what rock and roll is. It's you do whatever you can to be able to incorporate that into your life and be able to do that. It's a gift. It's a luxury, and it's awesome.
It is a gift because you've been doing it for so long, and you mentioned all the things that you put into your body. And you're here doing it. And I think that's just the ultimate victory, that you're still doing what you're loving. And you say shed. And I wanted to bring up, he's a friend of the show. He did an interview earlier this year with Chuck Shute. And it made some news. You talked that you were living in a garage. And I don't know. Is that people's business, do you think? Because wherever you live is where you live. It doesn't matter as long as you're happy and healthy. Should people look at that a certain way? Should people feel that a certain way about that? Or just say, David's just like, I guess, how do you feel? Well, without me answering.
Well, I think that there's a misconception about being in a rock and roll band. Like people assume that you have money and you have a nice car and you live well and have lots of hot chicks and all that. And it's not the truth. The truth is you do it because you love it and you don't know what else to do. And sometimes women come around, sometimes money comes around, but most of the time you're just living your life and doing the only thing that you love.
Do you think, because obviously that's why I will say that I'm not a youngin' yet, because I do remember life before the internet. I do. So do you? It wasn't much. It was part of my life. I do remember. So how do you feel about social media? Do you think that's changed how people perceive rock stardom? That they don't know about the blood, sweat, and tears, that they just see what's available to them on Instagram, not all the hard work behind it.
Look, I get asked a lot about what to tell young musicians getting into the business now, and I don't know what to say, because the internet and social media and everything has changed the game in so many ways. And big labels like I was on with Geffen Records, that whole thing has changed dramatically. And I don't know what to tell people anymore. I don't know how to tell young kids that want to play rock and roll how to, get noticed or, I lived in a magical time in the late 80s in Los Angeles when, it was available. And if you had any balls, if you had anything to offer, then you might get a deal. And that happened to us, and we were lucky for that. And I thank God for that. But these days, I have no idea what to tell young people. I don't even know if young people still want to play rock and roll. It takes time. It takes time to learn how to play guitar. It takes time how to learn drums. We live in a world where instant gratification is something important to young kids. If they don't get, if they can't learn how to play a lead within an hour, then they're on to the next thing. And, it takes a lot more than that.
Yes, it does. It absolutely does. I got this question from a listener of yours. This is from Ken Begora from Eastport, Long Island. I saw Junkyard a few years ago with Circus of Power and Warrior Soul. Out of the three frontmen, David Roach had the most stage presence by far. Between so many bands on the Strip in the 80s and the way record labels, as we're talking about it, were investing in talent, did you pick up any of your stage presence from other singers, or did you work with a choreographer of some time? So I guess he's asking about, where did you learn your stage presence from?
I think stage presence is a natural fact. It just comes. You don't learn it. You do. You learn it as you go along. You learn. First of all, let me say, I used to throw up every time I played. Like right before I went on stage, I would have to throw up because I was so nervous. Wow. But then it became more natural, and I'm not like, it's like taking on a ulterior personality. It's like you are who you are, but then when you get on stage, you become somebody else. You puke, and then you get out there and you give everybody everything you have.
It really is so relatable. Like, I can't explain. I don't know. Have I ever thrown up before a radio show? I've definitely sweated. And I'm not going to go gross with it. I have gone to the bathroom with stomach problems out of nervousness before the radio. Yeah, that's absolutely happened. So very relatable. Even if it's a natural reaction to just being thrown out there and knowing that you have to compel people. Yeah.
With your songs, with your music, with your presentation, it just comes naturally over time.
So let's go back in time, though. Not now when you're a professional, and we'll talk about the upcoming gigs more so. But last time we didn't talk about. We can go, I guess, in depth too much with the Perkins Palace show. If what you can remember of 1987, for one, was that the show that Fred Corey filled in for Steven Adler? Was that show?
No, Steve Adler. I think you're talking about Pasadena when we opened for Guns N' Roses.
Yes, that's what. Yes,
it was a 3-night stint in Pasadena, and Jet Boy, and I think LA Guns maybe, and us representatively opened for them.
Okay, I don't know. I'm looking at this site that's mentioned December 26th, 87. Again, I have to go back in time. This is what the young part comes in. In 1987, I was 4. So I'm sorry I couldn't attend this show.
You were born in 1987?
I was born in 1983, so I was 4 in 1987. So I was, I know, in 1983.
God, I'm talking to a kid.
You're making me feel better. Because again, I'm looking at my gray hairs, I'm bald, but so thank you. I appreciate it, David. I hope I'm not.
So like,
yeah, go ahead.
So now you know that your hair's growing in different places, like out of your ears and your nose, that you never, but not so much on the top of your head.
Yes. See, I'm in that part of my life, David. So, I'm getting there. I'm not a complete seasoned veteran.
Welcome.
So let's go back, though, to the days, the good old days when we had full heads up. Well, you have a nice head of hair still. What do you, I guess, remember of those shows? Because I don't think, again, we didn't go too much into detail other than the T-shirt wearing. Was there anything specific? Like, did you watch GNR Side Stage? Were you gone by that time? Were you partying? Like, what do you remember of GNR's performance?
Well, I always partied, and I still do. But what I think about a lot is that the fact that there were so many good bands, and when I was coming up in Hollywood in the late 80s, there were so many good bands, and they will never be heard. They'll never be heard of.
Can you mention some of those bands? Mention some of those. Yeah.
Oh shit, man! The Miracle Workers, the Hangmen, the Nymphs. There's a myth about 80s hair metal that it all happened on the Sunset Strip, and it didn't happen there. It happened in East LA, where bands like Guns N' Roses and Jane's Addiction and bands like that came from, because we didn't play the Strip because you had to pay to play, and we didn't buy into that. We thought it was wrong. We'd rather get paid nothing or get paid a 12-pack of beer or get paid $20 or whatever just to be able to play. Bands on the Sunset Strip had to pay. They had to buy tickets and sell them to their aunts or their uncles or their sisters, their brothers, their friends. We never went that route, and a lot of bands didn't do that. A lot of great bands.
I think that's something that at least I'm not going to say other people don't think about often, but I don't think about that often, about the pay to play and how that does box people out. And that is difficult even now. Obviously that's a big deal. So yeah, that's super important. So I'm if there's any other bands that as we can, round out this interview that just pop into your head that you feel that need to be mentioned, please do so.
Bands that only lasted a short while. So I had some good friends of mine that are mostly dead now. Pirates of Venus and the Sea Hags, and God, there was just a lot of talent around there then that didn't get noticed or didn't get the respect they deserve.
Well, I think that's why I'm glad you're still doing it, that you're not one of the bands that were forgotten, that you were able to make music in, recently, that's what was it, 2016, 17? What was your last full length?
17, yeah.
Yeah, 17. So, that's
because they don't have enough sense to do anything different.
Well, again, if you go to your social media, it's your fans are clamoring for you. So what are you looking forward to most?
I really look forward to what I have in front of me. We have 9 shows starting tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to all of them. I'll tell you a little story about Chicago, because that's where we're playing tomorrow night. I got this guy walked up to me. He was an old punk rocker. And he came up to me after the show and he said, "Yeah, I thought you guys were just a stupid hair metal band, and I'm old school punk rock, but you guys kicked ass." And I was like, "Wow, thanks, appreciate that." And also, a Chicago cop came up to me and gave me his card and said, "If you ever get in any trouble in Chicago, here's my card. I'll get you out of any situation you ever get into." And then we played in Oakland a few months later, and a Hell's Angel gave me a card and said, if you ever get any trouble in Oakland or San Francisco, here's my card. I'll get you out of anything you're in. And I mean, coming from a cop and a Hell's Angel and a old school punk rocker telling me that we rock means the world to me. But yeah, I mean, I like that we were able to reach that many different variables of people that all feel the same way. They just like to see something authentic and real, and that they got, the money they paid for walking in the door was worth it.
So what can fans expect this time around? So you're going to be in Chicago, Ohio. You're doing a couple dates in Indy, Nashville, a bunch of dates in Texas. What are we in store for?
You can expect the same thing they get every time. Everybody in my band leaves everything on stage every night. Blood, sweat, and tears every fucking night. And I don't know what else to give people, but everything you got.
You really have. Well, I was going to say it's admirable because we were talking about, you kind of said it jokingly, and I laughed at it, but all the things that you've been through and where you are now is something to admire. And I just commemorated my 6th year without alcohol, and that was very
good for you.
Thank you. Difficult. It's like a daily thing, and that's not to say I'm not perfect, and the reason why I tell people this, and it's not so much, and I appreciate all the listeners that were like, congratulations, thank you so much. It does mean a lot. But when you look at people like you and Steven Adler and Duff McKagan and Slash and so many others, that are fortunate. I know so many of your friends you've lost, and I've lost friends to addiction and family members, but there are survival stories. There are the redemption stories. So I think not just in rock and roll, but as a person, you can be looked at as like a redemption story, that you're fighting through this and you're not giving up.
I can't speak to redemption at this point because I still struggle with everything. But I can tell you something about Steven Adler, and let's start with him. He's the most decent human being I've ever met, but he is a good guy, and he dealt with it, and so did Slash, and we all try our best every day to, become better people, but we are who we are, and we're kind of animals with a different nature. So we do what we can to make ourselves better and try to keep on keeping on,
Yeah. And as we're rooting for them, we're rooting for you, and no one is perfect. I guess now I could say it because I don't want to be a hypocrite, because it's legal in New York. I can legally buy marijuana in New York. I heard the term California sober. I don't know if that's really counts, but I mean, I see a therapist. I'm on medication. I'm doing what I got to do. I got to keep stuff in moderation. I tell my fiance if what I do gets in the way of us, tell me. I don't let it affect my work. So but still, I want to get, for me personally, I want to get to a point where I feel like I could be better. So I feel that you're striving for it, even though maybe that's not where you are right now. Sorry, I don't know if this is conversation. I couldn't help but think about it. Mental health and where you are and where you're doing, and I'm just I don't know. I'm proud of you, David Roach. I think it's just real cool.
Look, where I came from, coming up, rock and roll was about being able to live your life and do whatever you wanted, and drink too much and smoke too much and do all the things that are just really not well for you. But it just seemed like the thing to do, because that's what my heroes did.
Yeah.
I mean, you asked me about my favorite singers, Bon Scott, Otis Redding, guys like that. He drank himself to death. So did Hank Williams. So did, a lot of people, because that was just the way it was.
Yeah.
Or and it's hard to shake off, and it's hard to, to differentiate yourself from the heroes that inspired you coming up and making you want to sing or play rock and roll in the first place.
Yeah. And I'm glad, kind of turned it back to positive, not just that you're around, but you're around rocking and kicking ass. And, I know these dates are kind of in the Midwest, kind of, but do you expect to add to these in the new year? Will I see you out here on the East Coast?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we're not. I'm not the manager. I'm not the. There's a lot of things I want to do that I'm not able to do because I don't make all the decisions. But yeah, definitely the East Coast. We always do well there. Philadelphia, New England, all those areas have always been kind to us, and I hope to be there again soon.
Awesome. So for those, again, I got listeners everywhere, and I'm lucky to have met as I did some traveling over the summer. Chicago, Lakewood, Ohio, a couple dates in Indy, which includes a half acoustic set. Nashville, Little Rock, Austin, which I had my first visit prior to the pandemic when I went to Austin City Limits. What a beautiful city that is. Eagle Pass, Fort Worth. And if you guys don't know, go to their social media, the website Junkyard Blues, BLOOZE. I like the creatively spelt. Junkyard Hollywood on Facebook, Instagram. New rock and roll video out, Rock and Roll Lifer, which is out, and it's also available on a single in 7-inch if you would like that as well. Anything I'm missing? I know you're not the manager, but is there anything that I'm missing that I didn't plug appropriately?
No, you covered it all. But tell people this: you don't have to buy a meet and greet ticket to meet me. I'm out on the street. I'm at the bar. I'm wherever. You come up to me and say, "Hey, introduce yourself," and I will talk to you. I'm not one of those guys that puts themselves above other people and thinks I can't talk to them or they can't talk to me. I'm available, and I like to share stories and I like to talk to people.
Thank you, and that's why I'm glad to have you on again. It's again both of us. I know I remember I interviewed David Roach because that's just like a name you remember, but I had to go back and listen to the content. But I needed a refresher to catch up with you, and I'm glad to hear that you are what I consider you're doing well. You're doing well, and I can't wait till you eventually announce some New York dates so I can, meet you in person, come up to you and have a meet and greet in person.
And we will have that conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
It's easier to be kind to fans. I mean, they're the people that, buy the T-shirts, they buy the tickets. They're there because they want to see you. And to give them a minute of my time is so easy. And it's so fucked up for guys who don't feel like that they're too important to meet people and talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not that way.
I mean, I remember when I was a kid, rock stars were unapproachable, and I always looked up at them and went, how can I get there? I don't know how to do that. How can I do that? When I found out a way, and I did, so it's nice. I like to be able to be available to everyone.
It's appreciated. It definitely is. I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of the Junkyard crew, if we could call it the Junkyard dogs, but I don't know. Maybe that's copyrighted.
Few in the crowd.
That's all you need, my man. David, thank you so much. Best of luck on the road. And again, I can't wait to see you when you're, in my neck of the woods.
Thank you. And since I will probably forget, just, rattle my cage, grab my shoulder and say, hey, I'm that guy. And we will talk.
Okay, that guy. You got it. You have a great day.
You as well. Thank you.
David's a good dude. And I want one of those Junkyard T-shirts, but I got to be real about it. I got to go to a show and get one. I don't want to just order one. I want to be a real Junkyard dog or no, I don't know. I'm not going to say that again. I want to buy it at a show. But here's the transition to how you could buy T-shirts online that you can't get at a show because, well, They're my shirts, and I don't play shows. That's a terrible segue. But I got to thank G from Iowa's Life and TNK Studio. You may remember him. He was my special fan co-host with the interview with Rick Richards. He did the Izzy Stradlin documentary, Dust and Bones, which if you have not watched that on YouTube yet, do yourself a favor and reserve some time and check out his fan-made documentary about Izzy Stradlin. I mean, it's so well done, and we did a whole episode about it. But anyway, so you also may know that G did the logo for this podcast. Not the old school one was done by an Australian artist, and forgive me, I don't remember his name. Yeah, Ian found him. But I mean, G, I think as a thank you for me interviewing him and helping promote his Izzy documentary, made me this awesome new logo, the one that I use to this day. So if you don't know, you can buy that as a T-shirt, as a hoodie, on a mug. Just go to redbubble.com, and that's where more of my merch is now available, thanks to G from Scotland, who helped me. He helped me digitize. I had this idea to put up Axl's mugshots, back to back to back, side by side, I guess I should say. So there's a T-shirt of Axl's mugshots, 3 of them, with a small font of Appetite for Distortion underneath. I don't want to, ruin an awesome T-shirt with my branding, but I got to have a little branding in there. So that is available now on Redbubble. Also, what is available? You can buy. It's a pretty tied up themed shirt, which I think is his idea, G's idea, pretty cool. Where it has a kind of like a masquerade mask with lips, and it says Madison Avenue or Melrose Avenue. Excuse me, Melrose Avenue. I'm too much New Yorker on the brain. Melrose Avenue, just like that famous picture with Guns N' Roses, and in the same street font when they're standing on Melrose Avenue. And also, this was also G's idea. This is an interesting shirt if you don't know the reference, but I know you will. If you recall, which I know you do, the You Could Be Mine music video with Arnold and the Terminator, and when Guns N' Roses are coming out of the show, and you see the Terminator going up to all of them and doing his Terminator assessment with the red eye, and he gets on W. Axl Rose and the target, and it says waste of ammo. Well, the target and waste of ammo you can now have as a T-shirt if you would like. So again, go to redbubble.com and just type in Appetite for Distortion. I got a store on there, and he's actually also working on G, that is, from Scotland, a Double Talk and Jive themed T-shirt. And again, these can be put on mugs, hoodies, hats, stickers, magnets. If you have other suggestions, Redbubble's pretty easy. They do everything. I don't want to ship it. I'm sorry. I don't want to packages. I'm lazy. I'm lazy AF, as the kids say. So they do everything. It's quality stuff. It would be nice if it was like a simpler, website kind of thing. But just type in Redbubble, or just hit me up on social, and I'll send you links if you really want a shirt or something like that. And the other thing I encourage you to do, because if you buy these shirts, it supports the podcast. It gets the name out there, and it gives people like me, who I like. Maybe I'm the junkyard of the podcast world. I've been doing radio for 20 years. I've struggled with addiction. I'm not big time, but I got my small fan base. It helps support, right? And the money also go to G, he did that Izzy documentary. He wasn't paid for it. That's not his job, really. It just kind of gives back. So if you find the Izzy documentary and you like it, that's like what YouTube does. Money, pennies on the dollar or whatever. So with that, subscribe to my YouTube as well, if you wouldn't mind. I've been putting a lot of, not just like this episode, if you're watching it on YouTube, while this was a phone interview, I'll put up pictures and stuff. But you can, and that's again where you can watch any of the, like especially the Zoom interviews. They're all on YouTube if you want to do more than just listen to it. But I've been putting a lot of interview clips. So as I mentioned, I put up the interview clip with Junkyard on there. So if you want to hear David from episode 88 talking about Axl Rose wearing the Junkyard shirt and what he thinks about it, that's on the AFD interview clips section of my YouTube page. And Same thing with Cherie Curry, rather, talking about recording a Velvet Revolver song for her new album, her latest album, Laura Jane Grace, talking about when she met Slash and talking about the Against Me album, against reinventing Axl Rose. I have a lot of, amazing. Miles Kennedy talking about the Rockstar movie. I'm putting up clips every day, at least one clip every day. It was just short, shareable YouTube, highlights of this podcast, of the 317 episodes. So again, just support me, what I do, this little GNR themed podcast. Hit like, hit subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen. It's appreciated. Again, check out those t-shirts. Let me know what you think. I want to get some feedback from you. I will tell you this as far as what is to come on the podcast. Another repeat guest, another guest I doubt remembers me, but that's okay. Frank Bello from Anthrax. Last time we had him on was in studio and was with Dave Elfson of Megadeth. And his life has certainly changed since that interview. But this is going to be with Frank and talking about his new book and, of course, GNR and stuff. And then we're going to get in the two brothers from the band Lit. They have a new podcast also, which centered, you would think like Guns N' Roses, like how can you do such a hyper-local, hyper-focused podcast about one band? Well, they did a podcast about one song. My Own Worst Enemy. They did like a podcast, a series, limited podcast, and we were talking about that. And man, those guys have been around since the late 80s. So they probably have GNR stories that you wouldn't think of. When I think of Lit, I think of my high school, late 90s, but no, they've been around. The Popoff brothers have been around for quite some time. So look forward to that as well in the near future. And I don't want to announce it yet because this is just like one of the there's two big guests. If I get them, they would be on at the same time because they're promoting the same thing. And I'm just waiting to hear back. It seems like it's going to happen. But one of these names I thought I would never get. They're not Guns N' Roses people. Well, actually, I'll leave it at that. One of them may have been in there for, I don't know if that counts. You like these conversations I have in my head? Mid-conversation? I just didn't want to spoil it. If it happens. And again, the best way to find out who it is, when the next episode is going to happen, is to follow on social media. I'm probably the most active on Twitter at the AFD podcast. And you know what? I'll end here. I'll give you a little update for those who only listen to the podcast that don't follow on social media about the book with Doug Goldstein. Still working on it. Obviously, Doug and I feel we've gotten a lot done. There's still more stories to record. However, as far as what we have recorded, I have over 130 pages done. Yeah. I feel like that's like the core, and we're going to expand on a lot of that. So that's like 130 pages of just kind of like, he tells he's a great natural storyteller. But when it comes to a book, I know we're going to go in there, we're going to expand upon things, and we're going to set the scene, and it's just like, wow, we have over 130 pages of just like him riffing, and I had to go in there and clean it all up and make it legible and connect things and put things together. If he talks about one thing in one area and another area, so it's a lot of work. It's still a lot of work ahead of us. But I just wanted to keep you updated because I think that's a cool thing. Like I give you behind the scenes of the podcast because I know people get a kick out of it. Behind the scenes of a radio or a podcast. Same thing with writing. I know you're not with me right now at my laptop, but there's just so many cool stories, man. They're gonna come out. Would you have ever guessed from Doug Goldstein, the former manager of Guns N' Roses, that there would be stories about Limp Bizkit, Eminem, Exhibit, Dr. Dre? There are stories about them in there. Not just the GNR stuff is interesting. His whole life is. So we'll see. Maybe next year at some point. Yeah, I'm crossing. It's going to happen. It's going to happen because it's going to be big. So until then, when will you get the next update about the book? When will you get the next update as far as the next episode is concerned? Who will the next guest be? Yeah, I know I told you Frank Bello and Lit, but when are you going to hear them? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, You'll see it, I don't know, as soon as the word.
Thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home.